What's up, Spence? Main Street Mogul here with Mr. Spencer Collinson today. Super happy to have him on. We've been talking about doing it forever, and he has such a diverse history with business in general, and he's a business coach and an entrepreneur at heart, I believe.
Yeah, I think
so. Happy to get into it today. So we'll just get right into it, Spence. You want to introduce yourself real quick before we get started? Just
yeah,
tell people a little
my
bit.
name's Spencer Collinson, 4 kids.
Four kids, so you stay busy.
Oh my goodness, that's a business of its own.
Yeah, running a family is the hardest business.
Awesome wife. I mean, my wife is something else. But I would define my life by that, family, very family oriented. Of course, I love EOS, EOS Implementer.
We'll definitely get into that today for sure.
And,
I kind of told you a little bit before the camera, we'll get into it, but if anybody watched my last interview with Jason Zalat, at the end I asked him, what his book was that he'd recommend anybody. He literally said EOS. And so we'll definitely get into that. We'll definitely get into that today, but let's get right into it, Spence. You've had your hands in everything, man, from Cutco to now you're in tech. To EOS coaching.
Yeah.
What's the common thread that's driven your journey through all those different ventures, man?
Yeah, man, I tried to think of a really deep or a really great answer for you.
Yeah.
And the truth of it is, at the core of all 3 of those, and I think what just drives me a lot in life is helping people. People. I think about when I started my company, my first company. Like, I did it to help somebody. I didn't even do it for myself. I did it to help somebody.
I've gotten to do several of these interviews now with different business owners and business people, and that seems to be a reoccurring thread with the people that I see that have the most success.
Yeah, like a tree.
Yeah, they don't get into it. You would expect something deep, like, the first answer you'd expect is, I get into business to make money. And the most people that have the most success that I interview never say that.
Yeah.
They always say, I do it to help people, or I did it because I have a passion, or because I have a purpose.
Yeah.
And that purpose always exceeds everything else and actually drives them to be more successful. My favorite saying, Zig Ziglar, is the best way to get what you want, so other people get what they want.
That's good.
So just a reoccurring theme.
Zig Ziglar all the time.
Yeah.
But money is a very low burning fuel.
Right.
When you tap into passion or like a deep emotional state, I think Tony Robbins is really, really big on that. When you tap into those emotional states, you go further, you focus better, you fight battles harder. And so for me, it was a lot about helping people.
Yeah, well, business is hard, and if you're just doing it for the money, you'll quit.
That's right.
You have to have something
Well,
bigger
yeah,
than
as
just
soon as you
the
stop
money.
making money,
Yeah.
you want to
And
quit.
the truth is, a lot of times in business, you go a long time without making money before you ever
That's
do.
right.
So,
Especially if it's your first time.
oh yeah, especially if it's your first time. That's right. Great. So, for those who don't know, you founded Cutco, which was a lawn care service. I believe y'all did basic grass cutting, landscaping, pretty much a full service lawn care company. I think y'all did everything except actually, did y'all actually spray lawns?
We didn't really get into turf management. No, it was just more of a cut grass, and then we got into the landscaping, which I wish I would have focused on a little bit earlier on, harder. But
Is that right?
You learned your lessons.
What did you think selling Cutco taught you about business and people that you still use today in your everyday life?
Yeah, selling Cutco taught me that you could tie up a lot of money in unnecessary parts of your operation. That's what selling taught me, because when I sold it, I had this influx of cash, and I'm like, I didn't realize how much cash I actually had in the business.
Right.
Not just selling the business, but like, I was using a ton of money, and I didn't have to use that money in that way. So it definitely taught me that. It taught me that you can make different decisions to tie up less cash and be more profitable. But one of the things that just Cutco in general taught me was make decisions faster. Not all of your decisions, but like, don't deliberate on, you think something is a loss, like, get to the bottom of that quicker. Make that decision faster, cut your loss, or if you can see something that's clearly profitable, then take your effort and energy and put it into that quicker. Don't wait. Don't let fear stop you or slow you down. Go for what you know is right, or it's going to be good.
Yeah. Is that kind of like where you get in the trap of you plan, kind of like you aim, never fire. You can kind of get caught in the trap of planning trying to just make everything perfect and never actually taking action? Is that
I think people are afraid of multiple things coming from a failure. You know, you miss the shot, your critic's gonna say something. You're your worst critic.
Your worst
you
critic.
know, you're like, I don't want to deal with this failure.
Yeah.
Learning how to fail is a really big thing in
So,
entrepreneurship.
would you say it's better to, and of course I think it's due diligence and we always want to use wisdom, you want to plan, you want to have, you know, some idea of where you're going and what you're going to do, but
Yeah.
would you say it's better sometimes to move fast, make the mistake, if there is a mistake to be made, fix it, instead of just 6 months just plan and never take action?
I mean, the skill of fixing things and dealing with issues is a skill. Learn how to fix issues as you go. But I would say that if you can afford the failure, you have to make that analysis first. Can I afford to totally flop this thing? And if I can, then most entrepreneurs, I think, get caught somewhere between 80 and +%. Like they're gonna be ready 80% of the way, and it's just a little bit more. And some, I wouldn't say most, but some entrepreneurs don't get to that 80%. They just go for it, and it ends up costing them a lot. So I would say that the 80-20 rule is a really good rule to kind of to answer that question. Is prepare 80% of the way. If you can't afford the failure, probably shouldn't be doing that. You should be setting yourself up for building more. So that you can take bigger risks.
Yeah. For those that have never heard the 80-20 rule, what is that rule exactly? Break it down.
So it's used in a lot of different ways, but in business, the way that it's used a lot is that if you do 80%, in this case, if you do 80% of your research, or if you have someone who can do 80% of the job, then you go for it. You pull the trigger. You
so,
make a decision.
in other words, that comes into delegation a lot too, which is where a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck. Is they think people can never do it as good as them, and that may be true. Like nobody may not sell as good as you or do the service that you do as good as you. They may not cut grass as good as you actually cut grass.
That's right.
But if you can find people that do it 80% of the way, 80% of 5 people doing it is better than you doing 100% of everything. Is that right?
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Okay. Was there a moment when you knew you were built to be a founder or integrator rather than a 9-to-5 employee?
Man, you know, I could answer this question in a couple of ways because there were some big moments, I think, throughout. I didn't really think too hard into those, but the question that I asked myself is, could I be an 8-to-5 employee again? And the answer to that is, yes, I could. I didn't make a decision that I just can't be an 8-to-5 employee. My real issue is that when I go to work, or if I'm in a partnership or doing something, I have to work with somebody who is a grower. And when I say grower, who's the guy who talks a lot about this? He's into EOS. Either way, I just can't. I choose not to work with people who just aren't growers. They're not going to get out there and take the risk. Or because even if I was an 8-to-5 employee, if I'm working underneath a grower, the sky is the limit. Because the sky's the limit for them.
Right.
So I'm not limited even as an 8-to-5 employee. So really, that's even more encouragement. You know, for the everyday 8-to-5er, it's like find the right place to be underneath a grower.
Right.
And
well, as long as you're with a company that has that's growing, as long as that company continues to progress and grow, it'll provide more opportunity for you.
Yeah.
So I love that. Versus you're with a company in any situation, whether you be an entrepreneur or 8-to-5, and you just are comfortable where they're at and they're not growing, you've kind of capped out. And I guess you're a person you never want, and I think most people feel that way, that are talented and smart. You know, they're willing to work hard, they're willing to do whatever they have to do, but just make sure I have a path of growth and an opportunity to continue to grow myself, not just financially, but also personally.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, money is a big deal because you can't really do life without money. But at a certain point, you have everything that you need. Right. And for most entrepreneurs, that's what they want. They just want to have enough money to get the things they want to get. Yeah. And be happy. It's not really about piling up the money. Like people like that, it's more about a pride thing. But most entrepreneurs, they just want to be able to get what they want when they want to get it. Yeah, that's right. And not stress about it. And I think it's the same way for the employee. It's like you get that, and then from there, if the company's not growing size-wise, or there's really nowhere for you to go within the company, doesn't just mean money. It means that the mentality is growth, like more excellence, better workplace, easier systems, right? Maybe similar money, the money is kind of capped out, but this is going to become an easier place to work. So I'm going to be taking maybe less hours.
Yeah.
You know, if we
I have a better quality of life.
team.
Or what I see is maybe I just really love the other people around me that are like-minded around me too.
Right. That you get tons of stress is alleviated when you work with people who are like-minded, right? Because you're all making similar decisions.
I'm making X number of dollars a year, more money than I can make at this other place. But man, I'm miserable and I hate the people I work with.
See it all the time. See people working for companies for less money all the time. They all say, "I would never go back."
I'm happy here. Even though I make less money, it's a better
They're
environment.
like, some of them are like, the money could be a little better, but I would never. I would never go back.
Wow, good stuff, man. For people that don't know, you also founded a gym. So, as a gym founder and EOS coach, how do you balance the visionary versus integrator mindset?
There's a few ways that I do it. I wrote down some really good notes on this because there's so many different things. Like over the years, you kind of create a system of like being a great entrepreneur and kind of balancing all that stuff. But there are two main things that I do. The first one is I use the E-Myth method. So like when I set my day up, the first thing that I do is I'm thinking big objectives. Like I'm not creating an agenda yet. What is it that I want to do today? Or how can I best use my time? Like what is the goal that I'm going after? And when I identify that, now I'm ready to start looking at my responsibilities and the things and the time that I have. And so that's when I get into that manager mode and I start to orchestrate the agenda and, schedule meetings or fit things together, right? I'm gonna have to troubleshoot this or that. I need to save some margin, maybe some clear thinking space. And then once I have my agenda, I go into my tech mode and I'm just executing. So I'm literally functioning just like an everyday employee in any business and I'm just following the agenda. Every now and then though, if you get stuck, you have to have the ability as an entrepreneur, and really anybody can read E-Myth, to look back up at the objective and go, this agenda is not getting me that. So I need to tweak to get unstuck where I am in the day. And I use that method. That's been very, very helpful for me, and I use that almost every single day. There's a few days that happens and you get hit early in the morning, and it's leadership level, so you have to deal with it. But showing up early, or preparing the night before and using that method of the entrepreneur mindset where you're high level manager, fitting the pieces together, creating an agenda, and then going out and just following the plan and getting it done. That's one way that I really kind of help myself to stay in check as an entrepreneur. And the other one is I make space for clear thinking. So a lot of entrepreneurs have a lot of thoughts. And
especially visionary ones, right?
Especially visionaries. They're the worst and the best. And so finding times, I haven't figured out a perfect formula for this, but I have recognized the value of having time to do clear thinking in the day. In the EOS, they call it a clarity break, but I would just call it clear thinking time. Like every now and then get away, if you feel your energy low or fuzzy, the tendency is to want to work harder or to fix, like, I'm stuck. But that you have to actually resist that to be able to get into a space and relax your thoughts and your thinking, because you'll never think straight if you're in like emergency mode. I think they call it system 1 and system 2. And once you switch into that emergency mode, like I'm behind, fear-based thinking, you stop actually critically thinking.
Wow.
And so you have to
your
build that
decisions
in.
won't be as good. So that's really good, Spence. So I think that happens if you get into business, any business, you're bound to get into that space where you kind of like, almost want to say like you get into this fight or flight mode.
You kind of do, yeah.
And you kind of just start making decisions just real rapid, real quick, and you're doing it out of place. A lot of times with fear or just having to make them because you get caught up in the frenzy of it.
Sometimes I will make multiple decisions and change course, and that's when I know I'm down in the weeds, because I'm like, I'm just away from this to this.
Yeah,
I need to step away from this
Good
I'm
stuff.
not
man.
actually making really
Good
clean
stuff.
progress right here. I'm not clearing my
And that's not our natural instinct for most entrepreneurs. Wouldn't be to step back and take a break.
It's
I
the
mean,
opposite.
it's the opposite. Yeah, we want to push in, and we if we work harder, we'll just work through this.
Yeah.
A lot of times, if we just step back, take a day, take a weekend, get that clarity break, we could actually come back and be more effective than if we just continue to push through something.
Yeah, have you ever noticed when you go on a vacation, you get inspired and you have these high level thoughts, but then you go back into the business and you don't do most of it?
Yeah.
Then that's fear related. But that type of thinking that happens when you're outside of the business is actually clearer thinking than when you go back into the business. And that's, you can get the same benefits. You don't have to take a vacation, but you have to build a space that's not distracting.
Take an hour sometimes, right?
Sometimes, yeah, an hour. I mean, it could literally be something as short as maybe 30, 40 minutes. It's sometimes it's hard to get disconnected.
Sometimes just
in that
stop,
short
take a
time.
deep breath, and just kind of center yourself.
Yeah, you have to get rid of that fear. Oh, that I have to plow
Yeah.
through this mentality.
One other thing I wanted to touch, I don't know, and I didn't give you this question to look over, so it's just kind of, but I know that you work, the whole gym founding thing,
Mhm.
and I think you told me you actually hired Alex Hermosi. So I'm a big Hermosi fan.
I did, yeah.
So I don't want to spend too much time on that, but just real quick, just because you happen to actually work directly with Hermosi and you come from that industry at gyms,
Yeah.
what was that like? Was that and I don't want you to say if it was positive or negative, but I guess just what was your experience like with Hermosi and genuinely did you actually get to meet him and was it beneficial at all in helping you do your gym and found it back in not found it but grow it or hit your goals you were trying to hit when you were in that business?
I think when we took him on, we had already made some errors in that business where we were kind of overloaded. And I think he gave some.
Did you actually meet with him?
I didn't meet with him in person, so we met with him, video conference.
Okay.
And it was with multiple other businesses. So you had the opportunity to interact, ask questions, and I believe I did directly. I think it was 2 or 3 times, and I remember getting what I felt like a solid advice. The thing that EOS brings is like an actual system. And while a lot of other consultants, I think, bring systems, it wasn't necessarily.
He didn't recommend EOS to you.
He didn't recommend EOS. They have their own system, and what I really like about Alex is
and we're talking a lot about EOS. So real quick, just for the few that don't know, EOS is the Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Right, Entrepreneurial Operating System. The book traction.
That's right.
Gino Wickman. But what I like about Alex is that he's a pump it up man. Like he's gonna go for it. He's very enthusiastic. No is not an answer for him. Like he is all about like how do we make this happen. He doesn't say I can't. He says how can I.
Yeah.
So he
I'll listen to a lot of the stuff. He'll say stuff instead of saying it's not possible. He'll say what can I learn to make it possible.
That's right.
And he'll kind of reframe the question to everything's possible. We just have to have the right questions to ask around it.
And I'm not sure how much he's developed the system, but at that time it was very sales related. And what I really needed was something to help me run the business.
Got it.
And to me, that area at that time, this is back in 2020.
Right.
So he wasn't very far along in like the gym model. I think he had been in gyms a while, but I think he was kind of developing what now is probably a lot better today with Gym Launch. I'm not even sure if Gym Launch still exists or if
I think he sold Gym Launch for like $40 million.
Right. So he is an entrepreneur at heart. He is a fantastic salesperson.
Yeah.
You want to learn sales? Go to Al. Like follow him. Go get on him. But it didn't have the effect that we wanted. But overall, I really enjoyed being around him.
Good. Well, thank you, man. Thank you. I just wanted to take that opportunity because he's become like a well-known guy at this point.
Yeah.
I've never met anyone that actually got to work directly with him, so I appreciate you sharing your experience on that. Cool deal. How has your definition of leadership evolved over time, Spence, from your early ventures to now being a fractional CEO now?
Yeah. I think early on, I thought leadership was all about having all the answers. Like, if you're the boss.
You can feel that way.
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought. I think it was whenever I was young. I thought when I was elevated into those leadership roles, it was like I have to go and give the answer. Like I didn't really operate with more of a relaxed, like the team is here, you know, and they are the ones who figure things out. The way that it's kind of evolved over time is that now I understand that leadership is said to be a lot of things, but what I understand leadership to be is that leadership is like a pointing of a direction or clarifying of a direction. It's not so much about the plan. That's not leadership to me. Leadership is the direction. And for each level of leadership that you have in your organization, the leader has to rely on the team in large part to create the plan, because the team is the one doing the work. They're the boots on the ground. Mm-hmm. So whether you're talking about a general manager, an integrator, to a leadership team, or you're talking about each department head to the next level, that team below them actually knows. You may be more knowledge based on the product, but how it actually works and interactions and the trouble that the team goes through, they know that better than you. And so,
because they're on the front lines every day.
That's right. So you really, it works with a lot of things out of the organization, but when you give them autonomy to help create the plan, you get better buy-in, you get a clearer plan, and that's leadership. It's getting the best plan and being able to rely on your team, but always assuring that the team is going in the right direction. It's more about direction.
Yeah. Wow, I love that answer, Spence. That's awesome. What's a mistake you've made as a leader that taught you a lesson that you now coach others on? We've all made mistakes.
Yeah. There's a lot of mistakes.
A lot of mistakes usually, yeah.
Repeat that question to me.
Yeah, sure. What's a mistake you've made as a leader that you that taught you a lesson that you now coach others on?
I think a big mistake that I used to make that I teach a lot is autonomy within the team.
Okay.
Like, I think I was an answer kind of a guy. Go do this. There's not enough time for feedback. And now when I'm working with, especially high-level leaders, I am trying to teach them that if you want buy-in, if you want the energy to be high, if you want to go to the next level in your leadership, you have to let go.
And that can be hard for especially founders companies.
Yeah, it is hard. I mean, I'm working with one on the ground right now, and it's been a lot of work.
I'm sure.
To do that, but that's something that I've learned from, and I'm always teaching and talking on that kind of thing.
Okay.
Is let go, get used to letting go. Try to do some things that help you practice letting go. Rely on that team.
That's solid
Give
advice.
them some
easier said than done for a lot of people. Huh?
Yeah.
That's where you come in. You help them get through that transition.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. For listeners who aren't familiar, we kind of touched on this, but kind of break down what is the Entrepreneurial Operating System and why does it matter?
Yeah, so the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, is basically like all of the things that you would try to create as an entrepreneur in decades of time. And EOS, they've done such a solid, simple job of putting all that together. So it's like a system to go ahead and help you do that before you have to learn all the lessons. Without having to learn all those lessons. If you're that type of person and you want to grow and you want to grab a hold of something, EOS is a great tool to go ahead and grab a hold to, and it's millions of hours of work. I mean, I did the math on just some of the research and the sessions and all that. It's over, I think it's close to 2 million hours of work that's been put into the system.
Yeah. We use EOS for Lajani's, and so my own personal experience with it. For me in the beginning, they would call me, I guess, visionary. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what that means sometimes. But at first I kind of hated it because it kind of reined me in, and I had to be more precise. And you know, I like to just, like you said, do things quick and have a lot of ideals. And but a lot of times, especially as a company grows, that can become dangerous when you're just running all over trying to do a million things. You have to have something that kind of puts everybody on the same page. It's documented, it's written down. It gives a direct vision of where we're going. It cascades messages so everybody knows. So I'm not going to get big into it, but I can say it made a huge difference ultimately in our growth of Lajani's, and really did help us. And we really didn't start seeing a lot of explosive growth until we really implemented that system. And it also brought more unity in the team. That's what it does. It brings everybody in a room once a week. You have goals written down, to-dos, and it's kind of, you know, did you accomplish?
Less chaos.
Yeah, less chaos. Did you get it done? Yes or no, right? And then if you go through the system, it's not like, well, let's just talk about it now. There'll be a time for that. You were given a goal with a due date that everybody agreed was something we needed to do to progress the business. Did you do it? Yes or no? Seems simple, but so powerful, and so many companies just aren't doing those simple things. And EOS just brings a structure where it makes you just have to do some of the basic, simple things.
And it's and simplicity is like the key word.
Yeah, simplicity.
You know, it's interesting. Not that I'm here to ask you questions, but you said that I'm still trying to figure that out. I think when a visionary gets to the point where they are doing their job, that going from working in the business or where they start most of the time, and the alleviation of all of that pressure, it leaves a lot of visionaries, because I've heard this before. A visionary will say, I almost feel like I don't have a job anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and that means that you're successfully in the visionary seat. It's when you're weighed down and you have that constant weight of the day-to-day when you're actually not being a visionary.
But I think you get so used to, you know, when you found a company and you grow it, you get so used to that day-to-day being at war and all those things. When you finally break away, it's almost like you just don't know what to do with yourself almost. You know what I mean? It's almost like you get I don't want to use the word addicted, but you get so used to it for so many years of just that grind, that pushing, and it almost doesn't seem real. It's almost like an adjustment period. You work so hard to set up the delegation.
It's like you want it, and then when you get it, you're like,
you're like, oh wait
a second.
Is
this really what I want?
Really
you know, but then that's the time, because you always go back to the fundamentals. That's the time to look at the accountability chart and say, what does the visionary actually do?
Yeah.
And what that
I need to go reread it.
Probably means is you're probably, as a visionary, you're probably hitting a ceiling. You know, you feel like lost, right?
Yeah.
If the visionary might feel lost, to a manager it feels stuck.
Right.
The visionary might be like, I'm kind of lost.
Yeah.
Right? It's that ceiling of like really understanding the seat, the fundamentals of what a visionary
For me, I want to go, you know, this is not about me today at all, but I've started a few businesses, and some have been successful and some haven't, which is a total visionary trait, right? But I think that's my natural. When I get uncomfortable or I don't know what to do as a visionary, I just want to go start something new. And just because new things are fun to me, they're exciting. But I've learned, you know, not that I don't want to get away or put myself where I'm scared of doing a new thing. But I definitely want to be more intentional about what I do and when I do it and my reasons for doing it. Yeah. I don't want to do it just to do a new thing. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it just kind of help you get unstuck from where you feel you are.
Yeah,
that's probably
almost like a drug.
Yeah, you're trying to like escape. Yeah.
That's good stuff. Yeah. Anyway, man, how do you help business owners shift from being a business to truly running and scaling one?
Man, this was probably the best question. It might not seem like it's probably the best question, but this is probably the best question. I was like, man, this is really good for an entrepreneur to know how I do this. And so the first thing is that, of course, we teach in EOS. Like, that's the fundamental, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you do EOS right, you can get there.
And it can take some time to really implement it and get it going. It can take a year to really.
It can take a year.
So I'll say that to say if you're not using EOS and you're trying to grow a company, maybe consider EOS, guys.
You know, that's not the only thing that I do though, because that wasn't the first thing that came to mind when I read that. That is fundamentally the thing that I come in and do to help visionaries or owners or even managers get unstuck. Like, how do we get them out of the business to where the business isn't running them anymore? Right? And it's more of a self-sustaining type of a business.
That's what everybody wants.
So EOS is the first thing. But the second thing that I do is I teach them how to kind of prioritize the different mindsets, right? Because even in the visionary seat, they do have to get into that tech mode where they operate on their plan. And so I do teach them about proper day setup. and it's all based on their time frames. Like some people want to come in at 4 o'clock, some people want to come in at 9 o'clock, and so but you have to create that space for that clear thinking. So if you got to put a flag on your desk where nobody can bother you and get into that E-Myth, I like to go back to E-Myth a lot. I teach that mindset of proper day setup so they know where they are in their day. Mm-hmm. If they get stuck, they know exactly where they are and they can know how to trace themselves back to the step that will get them unstuck. Am I having an agenda problem? Am I off of my objective? That's the second thing that I do. And then the third thing, you really have to have the capacity within the organization to do this, but if you can find your visionary integrator combination, you can find that right person that will really sit well in that everyday, same time, same place, loves accountability with the team, loves to be in the trenches, loves systems, just loves that repetition. They love if somebody's off beat, getting them back on beat. Hey guys, this is the rhythm that we're supposed to be in. Like the person who's really passionate about that, when you find that, you will do wonders for your organization, which is why there's a book on that called Rocket Fuel, because when that duo is working properly, I'm not just talking about putting anybody in that seat, I'm talking about getting the right person in that seat. And when you have that duo working, it's like creating what Rocket Fuel calls, it's this fuel for your organization that kind of lights it on fire. And so that would be the third thing. Teach them EOS, teach them about proper day setup and kind of how to run their day, and then finding that VI combo if they have the resources to do it.
Yeah. I love your passion is coming through. I can see you getting excited about this. I'm sure it's got to help a lot of people who are doing this very thing and seeing the impact of it. Right? So it kind of starts to excite you when you talk about it. Because you know what it can do to help you change people's lives when you can implement the system and go through the process.
I have seen organizations though that they don't have the resources to get that visionary integrator combo, and it's hard to go to people. It's not hard to go to people.
It's going to be difficult to find. It's probably the most difficult seat to find.
It is. I have a smaller company right now that they know what I do as an integrator, and they aren't trying to court me into that position, but their resources are limited, but that makes my passion with EOS grow even more, because I'm like, I know that you guys are like right on the verge of being able to get somebody like this, that I know kind of what level of pay they are. Yeah. I'm going to help you guys get clear on what that is, and then we'll look at it.
Do well enough to where I can come in here and we can rock it for you.
That's right. Yeah. So that just makes my passion come out even more when I find that if I can't get those three things working in an organization, it makes me fired up. Like we have to get those three things. We got to get to them.
Man, good stuff, Spence. Good stuff. Can you share a real story of a company that was stuck and how EOS helped unlock growth or clarity?
Yeah. So one of the companies that I work with, highly technical company, visionary, started from the ground up. It was like, and he even described it to me like this. So we say a visionary is the genius with 1,000 helpers. Yeah. Right? Like they don't really know how to run a team. They know how to sit in a room with everybody facing them and delegate tasks, but close enough to where they can have their hands on everything to make. And that's how most organizations kind of grow in the beginning.
That's right.
And that's how he was. As a matter of fact, his third to last setup that he had, office-wise, was an open room with him, and I think he had 10 other employees that it was all open desks.
Was it a circle like King Arthur's round table?
He didn't give me the schematic, but what he said was it's just an open room, and everybody would report to me. And
he loved it.
I think he probably did like it for a while until it started to kind of wear him down. And so we came in and we taught them EOS. Of course, they did some of it right and they did some of it wrong, and then we had to come back. And kind of revisit the foundation, because it was they wanted to move on to the more advanced stuff, and it was the foundation's not, you guys aren't really using the foundation like it should be. We really need to do this pure. And when they really started to do it, that's when you saw the organization start to move. And that guy, even though there's a tendency to want to get down into the weeds, he doesn't He's got a separate office, so he moved from the same level. Of course, they moved into different offices, but he moved from level 1 of that office building to level 2. He doesn't come in anymore. He's got the right person in the integrator seat. He does kind of like consultant meetings for his organization.
Got it.
And so he's got a lot more freedom. You know, I think he still is mentally still connected just as much as he was day one. And he's human, and he's got things that I think he worries about, but he's 100% more free. And the leadership team, the weight on the leadership team has been lifted now, because he's not like micromanaging every portion of every department, every portion of the organization. And so it's changed the culture. It's easier for them to work. They still have their own, capacity related issues. They're growing. And we say in EOS, if your VTO produces issues, then you're working towards it. If you don't have any issues, you're not really going to execute on your VTO. So be freaking jacked if you have some issues as you go, because that means you're growing.
I've once said an integrator or CEO, really their main job is just to search out and solve the big problems. That's literally all they do.
That's basically what it is.
Right?
Find the problems that no one else can find.
Good deal, man. So you are the fractional CEO right now of a 10-person tech company.
Mm-hmm.
What's the biggest challenge leading a small tech team right now?
I have to think about this, because there are a lot of challenges when you get down on the ground. And I think I kind of forgot that for a while when I was just implementing. Then I get back and I'm like, man, there's a lot of issues that we have. I had to recognize what the difference was between the big and the small issues. It's almost like I almost got stuck myself. But what I find is that because it's a smaller company, even though we have multiple departments, we are moving everybody at once. So when EOS is designed to go leadership team and then become really, really good and then roll out to where your team can roll out, I'm in the organization, so I can teach off the cuff. So as I'm working with this company, we are moving the whole company. It's like it feels like we're moving the Titanic, but we're changing, we're tweaking, we're fixing everything all at the same time. And probably the biggest challenge is getting people to reprogram the way that they think. They want to think when they're in that manager's seat in their own mind, when they're managing their day or when they're entrepreneuring their day and they're going, what are my objectives and how am I going to leverage my time today? The tendency to just go straight down to technician, no matter what their function is like a bad habit.
That's where they're most comfortable.
Probably, yes, definitely where they're most comfortable. And in EOS and in psychology, they say you have to say it 7 times. So I just have to say everything 7 times. And when I get to 7 times,
more like 70 times.
When I get to 7 times, that's when bad habits are starting to break. But it's raising the level of thinking from technician to each person being their own entrepreneur in their seat and really running their seat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, good stuff, man. So keeping yourself together personally is always big, and you be able to bring your best self to the people. You run companies, you coach entrepreneurs, you likely get pulled in 100 directions. You have a wife, you have 4 kids. What's some of your personal routines or habits that keep you grounded and able to be your best self to so many people?
Yes, gotta have routines. And it feels like it's taken me years, like maybe even more than a decade, to figure out like what really helps to keep me grounded. But I have some really solid things at this time in my life. And so the first thing is that I always recognize when I'm not getting proper rest. So if I'm not sleeping enough, or if I'm not sleeping right.
Do you track your sleep? Do you have anything that you use to track it? Or
I don't. No, I go off of feel. I have a couple other things that I'll say later on about just.
I have an aura ring.
Coming from
every morning when I wake up, I look and it actually tells me my sleep.
Some of those things can be really helpful. I found that things like that, the Whoop band, stuff like that, wasn't just it can a little obsessive for me. So I had to kind of go in a different direction. But I do recognize now when I'm not getting enough sleep or good rest. When I'm not rested, I wouldn't say enough sleep. I would say when I feel rested. So recognizing when I need to do that, and I make adjustments. So I'll catch a sleeping day on the weekend, or I know it's coming, or maybe I'll take I haven't taken a power nap in a while, but sometimes that does me good. So that's the first thing that I do. One of the other things that I do is which has been a little inconsistent, but it's helped me a good bit, is going to the gym early in the morning. So it helps me with a lot of things, helps me psychologically, my body, I'm not nodding up at the desk. And then doing that early helps me to get my day started early. You know, I'm not hitting snooze on the snooze button. Another thing that I do in my day, which is really just kind of like the second thing that I do, we call it mountain time. So Jesus got away, right? He went to the mountain. I call it that, but that's not where it really came from. I had to really identify, like, what do I want out of this? And when I got to the motive behind why I would want to do time alone with God, it solidified itself. Like it just automatically.
So every day you take some point out of your day to just take a one-on-one with you and God, and just kind of pray and just have that centered. Kind of like we talked about earlier, like you daily are taking yourself out of the chaos and connecting with God on a daily basis.
It is. It's one of those clarity spaces where I'm getting my spirit right, because we should always lead from spirit. So I try to get my spirit right in that space every morning. And then the third thing that has really helped me to not be pulled in multiple directions is that there's a book called Prosperous Coach, Rich Litvin, and forget the other guy's name. Which that's not the book, but that's related to it. He talks about coaching from spirit, and so it's not easy to learn spirit. Well, I wouldn't say it's not easy to learn spirit, but for me, it's been somewhat of like a learning experience. But at the same time, when I can connect with where my spirit is on something, that's a better guide than me looking at a paper. You know, the black and white may say one thing, or my emotions may say another thing. But my spirit is always on.
God, that's so good, Spence.
So I use that to help direct me away from distractions and energy just going in multiple directions or not a clear head. Just come back to where's my spirit. You know?
Yeah. Wow, man, that's good. So, Monty, what I'm hearing is you're very focused and intentional on mind, body, spirit.
Absolutely.
Right? And all three of those have to be good. So you're watching what you eat, you're working out every day.
That's right.
You're taking time with God every day. And that's the routines that helps you be your best self and pour out on so many people.
Yeah.
Wow. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. How do you handle stress or burnout, especially when you're constantly solving other people's problems? I think we kind of answered that a little bit.
No, this is another question that I almost overlooked in the way of importance.
Okay.
And I was like, oh wow, this is how I do that. So I don't take on people's problems anymore. I don't carry people's problems.
Explain what you mean.
So, I'm here, you know, let's say you have problems in a business, okay? Or we can even say like with one of my kids.
I do have problems in business.
Right?
I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so if I'm working with you, I'm not gonna take that personally. Like when I leave, I'm dropping that. I used to take that stuff home with me and go,
so what I'm hearing you
this.
say is you've learned just to have proper boundaries.
That's right. Yeah, it goes back to
what you didn't always
back to proper
do.
boundaries.
Right.
Even after doing studies on boundaries, you know, getting back into the coaching business, where I wanted to go into the business, but I was actually outside the business coaching. I found myself taking on those thoughts and problems, and I would think about those things as I go home. And then from time to time, there are still situations in business I'm like, oh, I can't wait till that resolves. But now I learned that like I'm helping people solve their problems. I'm not solving their problems for them. They have to solve their problems.
That's right.
And so the ability
if you solve it for them, you're not really being a good coach, are you?
Right. They're not going to repeat the success if I solve it for them. And it's the same way with family and kids too, in relationships. Like to see my kids suffer through different things. Dr. Amen's got such a good perspective on this. He said, and there's the other guy who talks about this a lot. But teach your kids how to suffer well. Don't take the suffering away. Let them have the problem.
Yeah.
Teach them how to suffer well. And they will learn that skill of being able to come through things. So when they're suffering, you encourage them.
Yeah.
You clarify for them, but you don't do it for them.
Wow.
And so now
and I bet just as a parent, when you can easily solve your kids' problems, knowing that having the discipline to let them go through it, not just step in and save them. I imagine you see the same thing when you're working with business owners, right? You know you can solve that problem. You know you can easily fix it. It almost takes I'm sure it's been a learned discipline to know how much to step in and help versus, man, I know they really need to go through this. Because I know you have a big heart, just like your kids, right? You don't want them to suffer, but you literally know it's best for them to go through it.
You know, you have to know when to step in, though. And that would be like with a kid, right? You can't let them suffer everything. Like, there are things that they won't recover from. And so just like with kids, where I see a situation, they're not going to recover from that, I have to step in.
Yeah.
And I do that same thing with businesses. I'm like, they're not going to recover from this. So I can't let them go down.
Can't let
that
this
path.
mistake happen.
Right. Like, I've
This
denied.
will sink the ship.
That's right. Yeah. So there's even been opportunities where I may be able to work with certain people, and I'm like, that's going to work. The amount of effort that I'm gonna that I teach is too much right now. They actually need to work on, like, just there's a few relationship issues, or they're kind of like right outside of the size. They don't really have the resource, so maybe I'll give them some things to work on, and then as the company grows, and come back and work with me. I would sink an organization, or I may stop certain other decisions and say, I'm going to impart my will right here as an implementer, which I don't do often, but I'm imparting it right now. We're not going down that path. And here's the why, right? And you always teach why. So I don't carry people's problems, but I do know when to step in if it's necessary.
Got it, Spence. Wow. So looking ahead, what's something in business or tech you're watching closely right now that excites you?
Yeah, I almost just went to AI, and I was like,
everybody, man.
I was like,
a
AI is such a
right
sore
now.
topic.
I hear it all the time. We're using some of it a little bit, but everybody's talking about it. But what is? I don't want to get you off topic.
No,
what is AI actually doing? That's actually making a railroad pack in now. I feel it's like, it's the future, but it's right now. But what can you really do to implement in a business that actually is making an impact right now?
So I'll dumb it down to a really, really simple level, right? And of course, there are things that, like, just with anything, they can get out of hand, or you can go down the wrong path. You have to be aware of those things, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that always bothered me about AI. It was like, what can't I see that someone else is controlling? That's what I don't like.
Yeah, no,
okay?
I get it.
But what I have seen in working with this company is that
because you're with a tech company, so you get to kind of be hands-on and see firsthand some of this stuff.
And so on the most basic level, it's building in automation. And so a really low-level example of this, where it would be a very good thing, is that when an issue needs to be escalated in this organization, normally it would be a phone call or a lack of clarity in the notes of the ticket, and some kind of like limbo, and not moving the ball along, right? Not letting the ball roll.
Sure.
It's kind of the ball just stalling. What we've done to make the most basic level of understanding of AI is that we went into the program and we automated some text that comes up when you hit an escalation button, and it says, answer these questions.
That sounds cool.
Clarify.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So very, very basic stuff. But all automations are built off of simple systems. So you can see, you see a robot standing up and moving. That's not just one system. That might be 100 systems on top of each other. And that's what automation is. The reason that I'm passionate about it is because even though it's existed for a really long time, when you think about it, like an alarm clock is AI. It knows when to go off on its own, right? Artificial intelligence.
Right.
It's really building in automations, and we have done some jobs recently where that took us outside of our comfort zone, and we succeeded at them. And as I'm, conversing with the team, the owner, I'm like, this is very well could be a great opportunity, because there's not a lot of people in this space. So, finding the areas of the market that need that type of thing, and developing an organization into that without getting outside of the niche, it excites me. I like it.
I'm excited for you, man. It's exciting stuff. Besides AI, is there anything else you see come down the pipe, just for entrepreneurs in general? Or what's the next big opportunity coming? Do you see anything else in your perspective? You work with so many different businesses, and I know it could be different for each business, so that's a hard question to generalize, but is there anything off the top of your head you see that we could have as a big opportunity?
Yeah, emotional intelligence is a kind of a trendy thing right now. I don't know if I would say it's trendy or it's just needed. Okay. But the latter generations that are or have the ability to become more, I think, emotionally connected. And what that does is that creates that higher burning fuel, like culture, for example. When you know how to build an effective culture, just listen to a podcast, Rich Wilkerson. He preached a great message on culture to some leaders because they do conferences. And he was talking about...
You don't know this, I haven't told you this, but I'm literally going to a conference in about 3 weeks in Austin that's completely around emotional intelligence. No doubt.
So emotional intelligence is like a component to culture.
Yeah.
Right? And so because culture is all about your values and how you make decisions and how you set your team up to thrive, and it's not necessarily the systems that you use, it's more about the clarity that you have and where you come from spirit, right? And so you could use either term of was it EQ, OQ or whatever, the AQ, whatever they call it, emotional intelligence and culture. I think that there's a disconnect in the workplace. And a lot of people like to blame it on, well, there's just not the same workforce that there was. And I'm going to call a spade when I see
I hate when I hear people
that
say
is not true.
Yeah, well, BS on that.
What the disconnect is that they don't know how to create culture. They know how to give demands.
Right.
They don't know how to be leaders. They know how to create an agenda.
Right.
And so when you start to, I think the next thing that a business can really kind of grasp, that excites me, that I do see very relevant, learning how to build culture.
Yeah,
On a fundamental level.
Man,
we can
that's
understand it
amazing.
on a higher level, but when we really get down into
I think that, you said something, how'd you say it, that people say there's just nobody wants to work anymore.
That's right.
That's not true. What's happened is you've been in this business 20 years and what got you to one level won't get you to the next level.
That's right.
And it's not that people don't want to work, it's that you're not related to today's workforce in the way you want to be related to. It's a different workforce.
It's a different
You have to
workforce.
relate to them differently. And you know what? If you're fortunate enough to stay in business long enough,
Yes.
the way you relate to your people today is not going to be the way you relate to them 10 years from now. That's going to be an ever-changing thing.
40 years ago, the number one thing in the that workforce value was the opportunity to, like, I forget what the term is, but it was based around the discipline in the work. Like climb the ladder, get in early, work hard, climb the ladder. And then it went from there and it changed to less important things. Today, the workforce, the number one thing that the workforce wants is belonging. They want to belong. If they don't feel they belong, they leave.
Yeah.
And I see that all the time. It's
Sure.
like, I just don't fit there, right? And it'd be core values and culture. We're talking about building culture. It's really hot right now. It ties into their worth and their belonging.
Yeah. It's good, man. I've seen that too. We talked about earlier. Culture is so important. People actually take a little bit less money to be around people they want to be with. You have a good culture. And then something else I've seen too is, people definitely want to continue to have opportunities to grow and they want to make a good living, of course, and they want to be able to grow and have more financial reward as they grow. But something else I've seen is money's not always the most important things to people. I've had some people that really, if you ask them, hey, we're a growing company, I'll sit down with them, what do you want? And I'm always expecting the first thing to be is a raise, which does happen a lot, by the way. But a lot of times I'm surprised, especially with my younger employees. You get to the 20, 22-year-olds, and the first thing they'll ask for a lot of times is not more money. They'll say, we love the culture here, I love the people I work with, but more paid time off and more time with my family is more important to me, right? That's something 10 years ago when I was talking to people, I wasn't hearing as much. So it's just a thing it's a culture shift, and what's important to one person may not be what's most important to the next person, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Wow. Good stuff, man. So what's next for Mr. Collinson, man? What do you see yourself building? Something new, scaling? What do you have? What's the secret in the bag? What's the next big empire you're going to build? You got to have something going on, man. I'm trying to get the secrets out of it.
It kind of goes back to that last question, and that is, I think possibly. So far I'm about 0% for guessing where I'm going to be in the future.
Yeah, me too.
But if I had to guess, right, or if I'm going to spill kind of some of the things that I'm focused on, it is learning how to step into an organization and transform the culture quicker. So teach more effectively on how to transform, get quick buy-in from older leaders, bridge the gap between, you know, the workforce that's going out and the workforce that's there now. And I think that's going to be done through culture.
Yeah.
And that supports everything that I do. You know, like having a strong culture only makes the other tools that I teach more effective. So I think it would be to transform culture. Like if I had to create a website of what maybe the future would look like, transform culture quickly.
Okay.
Something like that.
All right, I love it,
I think it's a
man.
huge part of today's businesses.
All right, man. Well, we're kind of wrapping up. We're going to do what we call our rapid fire round. And are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, cool, man. So a book that changed your life, and I always have to give this preference. Please don't say the Bible because it changes everybody's life, right? So besides the Bible,
Yeah.
what's one book that changed your life?
Man, I had to think about this for a second, but the first, the book that probably has changed my life most radically is Spiritual Man. It teaches body, soul, spirit, and how we were designed to function. We were designed to function from
Do you know
spirit.
who wrote it?
It's Watchman Nee.
Watch.
It's like a 300-400 page book, okay? But if you study the first 40
I just
pages,
realized when you told me the author that I have that book on my nightstand for about the last 5 years, and I can't get through the first chapter. That is a serious book.
Get through the first 40, 50 pages, but study it. It teaches that the way that most people operate is soul. Soul. Thoughts, understanding, rationale, feelings, you know, their emotions. We operate with those things considered. Like everybody knows you don't just follow your emotions, right? But most people don't know you don't just follow your thoughts either. Like if it looks good on paper, you don't necessarily, and you know, go with your gut. You know where that comes from? Your gut, that's where your spirit is. When you come from your intuition, what you know is right, the only way that we can connect with God, you know the only way we can connect with God is spirit.
That's right.
So if we want to be most accurate, right, we have to come from spirit. And that's why you hear a lot of things now. The right spirit, that's a whole different conversation. However, we shouldn't operate soul, then spirit over here somewhere, and body's important. What we should do is we should let the spirit lead. The soul needs to come into unity with the spirit, and it will produce great things for the body. And if you do it in that order, there's a lot of learning about the Spiritual Man. It's changed the way that I look at a lot of things. Spiritual Man, Watchman Nee.
Wow. Deep, Spence.
Hands
Deep.
down.
All right, man. Most underrated skill an entrepreneur needs.
Most underrated skill is I'm gonna give a phrase instead. Knowing the difference between objectives and agenda. Most entrepreneurs do not know the difference between objectives and agenda.
Okay.
So objectives are the end point. What do I want? When I operate from the end point, I become flexible, right? My energy stays high, I don't get stuck. If my agenda's not working, I can change it. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can apply that, but most entrepreneurs don't think objectives always trump agenda. You gotta have
say
it.
that one more time.
Right, so this is why it's probably the most underrated skill, because the ability to recognize when you're operating from an agenda that's not working, you have to go back to the objective. So if I have a 1-year plan,
It's knowing your mission, right? Knowing your purpose.
not really. See, I think there's a little confusion around like what is really objective? What does that word mean? Right? Because it can be used in a different way. But what I'm talking about is if I have a 1-year goal, my quarterly plan is the agenda to knock out a quarter of that, to get me to the objective. So if my 1-year plan is my objective, I'm going to have I'm saying 1-year plan, but if my 1-year goal is my objective, my quarterly chunks are going to get me there. That's my agenda. But if I'm talking about a 3-year picture, my 1 year actually becomes my agenda for my 3-year. So whatever I'm working on, I have to think, what is the objective? What is my objective of this? If I can clarify my objective first, I set everything up better to get to that end point, because if I get stuck or I'm going too slow, I shift gears, I change my plan, because I know that I'm not going to get to that objective in the way that I want to, or in the time that I want to get to. So objectives over agendas.
Good stuff.
Underrated skill.
Good stuff.
For sure.
Usually people got to pay for this kind of stuff, guys. Y'all getting it free on Main Street Mogul here today, man. getting it free. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh man, this is a good question too. To know when I was operating off of someone else's expectations. So many times I didn't realize I was making decisions, I was carrying stress, and it was all because of someone else's either said or unsaid expectations. Sometimes I create an idea of what I thought somebody wanted for me, and I didn't even know that's what I was operating from. But learning, hey, you know what? This is not what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my expectation is not this, so why am I carrying all this weight around? I think if I could have understood that a little bit better at a young age, that would have done me well. So that's one thing, but the other thing is understanding that the obstacle is almost always, I would veer to say that the obstacle is always the way. Right? The obstacle is the way. There's a book, called Ryan Holiday. Obstacle is the way. We avoid the obstacle so often, but the obstacle is
where the opportunities are.
Standing in between where we are and what we want, and so the obstacle is the way, and so we have to dive into the obstacle.
Which is counterintuitive. That's not what you normally want to do. You want to run away. You always run to the easy. You got to run towards the hard.
Yeah, that's the common thing, is to run away from the obstacle.
Spence, one more question, man. I'll let you get on with your day.
Oh,
This has been great, by the way.
I love this
Thank you
question
so much, man. One thing Main Street business owners should start doing today.
Man, that's actually the second to last question. You got one more question. You might not print it on there. It's about entrepreneurship. I'll ask the question.
Okay, go for it.
So, but that question, the one thing that they should start doing today, practice letting go.
Okay.
Practice letting go. Different areas, different ways. Build that skill. Practice letting go, because most people hold on to too much. They're trying to.
There's a new book that just hit. I think it's by, I don't want to say Mel Robbins, maybe.
Okay.
Is it Mel Robbins?
No.
It's a Mel something, but the name of the book is Let Them. And it kind of goes into what you're saying. And anyway, I highly recommend it if anybody needs some help doing that, because that's great advice.
Yeah.
To just let go and let them anyway.
Yeah.
So.
The last question that you sent me to look over was, what is entrepreneurship? It was entrepreneurship is.
Okay.
That was the question.
So entrepreneurship is, Spence, what is it to you?
It's a gift. Entrepreneurship is a gift.
Is it a gift that can also be a curse?
I don't think so.
Okay. Explain.
I think it's a gift. So I think a curse is something with I guess I wouldn't really define a curse, because I'm not like really familiar with that. But what I would say is that,
First of all, I agree entrepreneurship is a gift, but
I like how you asked that question, though.
Yeah.
I like how you asked that, and I would say this is that we need to look at it as a gift.
I agree.
Right? If you don't want to be an entrepreneur, don't be one. Doesn't mean it's a curse. It can definitely create hardship, but you take those hardships and you make them your stepping stones.
Yeah.
And so entrepreneurship is a gift, and I think is how it should be looked at. It's a gift.
Love it. Thank you, Spence. Thank you so much for coming on today. Real quick before we get out of here, if anybody wants to reach out to you or talk to you or hire you or anything at all like that, what's the best way for somebody to get in touch with you? Instagram or a message?
I don't do any of that.
Email?
Everything that I do, I mean, I have email, but honestly, I don't even look at my email most of the time.
Okay.
The best way for them to get, probably just in social media, or to reach out to you and say, hey, what's that guy's name? Give me his number.
Fair enough.
And then you just text me the number, because I also answer numbers that I don't know.
I understand.
They don't leave you a message, they're not going to call back.
So, guys, you heard it here. If you have any questions for Spence or anything else, or if you'd like to talk to him more, you can reach out to me at bugbossing@gmail.com. That's my Main Street Mogul email, or jaredthepestguy@gmail.com, or through any of my social media stuff. I'd be happy to put you in touch with him. And this has been great, Spence. Thank you, guys. As always, guys, I love y'all. Tune in next week. I'm going to be interviewing the pest control legend, Mr. Paul Bello. So be looking forward to that. And y'all have a blessed day.